condensed information, make it clear, make it actionable. So if you're looking for a response, that's really clear instead of a big jumbled mess of a bunch of paragraphs that no one is going to have the time to read. So that's really where I saw the need for good communication come in. In a project, you will have done some sort of stakeholder analysis where you really do understand who are the people that need high-level updates, who are the people that need that daily update. So figure out what there is to say and do before I run and wave the red flag that something's on fire. The way I run my weekly meeting, clear agenda, list of attendees, action items from the week before, meet deadlines, taking notes so everyone is on the same page, documenting when decisions are made, when action items come up, any issues that come up, and then new action items that list the action, the owner, and a due date, and sometimes the status as well. And at the end of every meeting, I send a recap of what was discussed, and then I always include the action items with a clear due date and ownership. I talk a lot about the bystander effect. The more people that are involved, the more someone assumes someone else is going to take care of it. So the more people are copied on an email or in a chat and someone doesn't specify who they're talking to, no one's going to respond. They're all busy, right? It is a skill to take a bunch of information and condense it into bullet points. Like, that actually takes work. I have team members who will send me something and they'll send me 2 paragraphs. Nowhere is it clear, again, what is the actual ask? What is the response you're needing? How do you summarize the issue, right? It was a moment where this person and I were kind of going back and forth, and we both realized, you know what? Neither of us are communicating what we think we are clearly. Why don't we hop on a call and have a conversation in person? Because the back and forth through the texting just wasn't working for us. We got on a call, had a great conversation, cleared up a lot of things that just weren't happening in the text message. And so the lesson there just being like, always evaluate if the mode of communication you're using is working or not. Assume the other people have good intentions, and if it's not working, try a different mode of communication.
Welcome to this episode of Life and IT Project Management, where we connect the dots between the life we experience and the IT project management delivered it. So both aspiring and experienced initiative drivers achieve real-world success. With over 15 years of experience managing enterprise projects, Melissa has excelled at driving large-scale international projects. Known for her leadership, emotional intelligence, and strategic problem-solving, she has successfully managed multi-million-dollar portfolios, recovered risk accounts, and optimized processes across diverse industries. Melissa's ability to connect with teams, streamline communication, and translate complex data into actionable insights makes her uniquely qualified to speak on delivering effective project updates, resonating with stakeholders. Join me in welcoming Melissa Magee.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, Justin.
So great to have you. Thanks for joining us. All right. So the topic today will be sticking to how to deliver clear, concise, and effective project updates. And I will begin with a first question I want to ask. What led you into project or program management, and what inspired focus on effective communication amongst other things?
Great question. So yeah, I am a former middle school Spanish teacher. So for a handful of years, I was a Spanish teacher. And before that, spent some time in program directing at a couple of different nonprofits. So sort of span the range of different industries, mostly nonprofit and education. So I was doing some program directing, and then was in a classroom for 4 years and just felt like it was time to leave the classroom, not sure what to do, and literally started Googling, like, what can teachers do outside of the classroom, and stumbled upon other former teachers who had gone into project management, and pretty quickly realized how similar managing a classroom is to managing a project. And so, long story short, pivoted into project management, got my PMP using my classroom experience as 36 months, that are required for the PMP. From there, also got a job working as an international project manager, and that role has changed a couple times at the company that I've been at. And as far as project management itself, I love parts about it that I love. When I was leaving teaching, the reason it resonated with me was all of the things about good communication, which is a huge part of project management. I love a good to-do list, and I love crossing off the to-do list, and I like being organized, and I really love efficiency and processes, and how can I make this more efficient for everyone? And so a lot of those things really fed into my drive to get into project management. Specifically when it comes to communication, I think this comes from when I was a little kid, but also just, I mean, all of the different roles I've had, I've just seen how important good communication is and what the detriments are when there is not good, clear communication. We all think we're good communicators. We all would say, yes, when I say this, people know what I mean, but unfortunately, that's not always the case. And it's extra important as a project manager to be clear, to be concise, to make sure that our message gets communicated correctly so that the project can move forward. And so that's really important as a project manager and something I'm very, very passionate about.
Thank you so much for going way back to help the audience understand and to help the audience connect, because many with diverse backgrounds, especially teaching and so forth, might not be able to translate their experience, 36 hours, their experience into practical, real project experience and all that. That is definitely possible. So thank you for affirming that. Now, moving to the next, I do know that two categories of folks. One, were aspiring PMs who have come across the science of communication management in becoming a PMP certified, and as well experienced project managers or technical project managers who might have had experience with challenges, not being able to communicate clearly. When we speak of delivering project updates, we want to deep dive into the elements of a poorly delivered update. Okay, poorly delivered, yes. So let's begin with, when did you first observe that, okay, this is a real issue? This is a challenge that needs to be contained when communicated out on the progress status of.
So in the company that I'm currently at, we have a team of several subject matter experts, right? So I'll be working on a team with maybe 7 or 8 different people that own their tasks and their items. But what would happen is there wasn't a lot of internal communication. So there was a lot of silos between the different parts of the project. And so usually what would happen is I would come in and get added to a project that didn't have a project manager. And usually it was even a client-facing project where the client said, we need you all to communicate better. You're not talking to each other. And that's an issue, like one person would go to the client and ask a question and someone else would. And then the client's like, you two aren't talking to each other. And so a lot of what I did was come in and really figure out how to align internally first and to have a good plan for how we would communicate internally. And then I would synthesize that information, condense it down to like the vital information. And then I would be the kind of conduit to transfer that information instead of dripping information, which is, I think, the most common problem is people drip information and drip emails. And nowadays with Slack or messaging, right? Instant messaging. And we have them emails, like people just drip information and things get lost in we get 30, 40, 50 emails, right? In a couple hours sometimes. And so how do you condense the information, make it clear, make it actionable? So if you're looking for a response, that's really clear instead of a big jumbled mess of a bunch of paragraphs that no one is going to have the time to read. So that's really where I saw the need for good communication come in.
Great. Whether you spoke about silos, different silos. So basically that's cross teams, right? And managing the communication with specific stakeholders, ensuring that there's efficiency in that whole process. When it comes to tailoring updates to different audiences, let's start with delineating between executives and project teams, right? What have you experienced? What kind of communication is most effective communicating with executives as opposed to communicating with a project team?
This is where in a good comprehensive project, right, you will hopefully have done some sort of stakeholder analysis, stakeholder mapping, where you really do understand who are the people that need high level updates, who are the people that need that like daily or, whatever the situation is type of update. So generally you have that stakeholder analysis of people who have high impact and need a lot of communication versus the people that maybe have high influence, but don't need to be communicated with so often. And so once you kind of understand that, you differentiate. There are people that are on my team that we have like daily emails and we're in a chat and they're getting every single little update, right? And then there's more high-level updates for like C-level or VPs or directors who maybe don't need to know every single thing along the way. They maybe just need the high level or, a lot of times an issue or a risk will come to me first. And then I decide when to escalate that so that I can kind of be that buffer between the team and needing to escalate the communication. And they might come to me with like, spit out the problem. Here's the problem. Here's what's going on. And what I do is I take that again, I synthesize that. I can take it to the director or whoever I need to go to and say, here's the problem. Here's what we're doing to mitigate it. Here's, potential solutions. And so really offer as much as possible a solution or a semi-solution or a documentation of what is happening versus just, again, what I see a lot is people just kind of spit up their information like, it's like, oh, this is all the stuff that's happening. And it's really important for the higher level you get up to C-level, you really have to be clear and concise. And here are the bullet points. Here's the key information you need to know. Here's what I need from you. And be clear. Am I telling you for your information just so you have awareness, or am I asking for your help? And being really clear what the ask is. Because you get an email, you need to know, okay, what am I supposed to do with this information? Do you need something from me? Or, right? So just making sure it's very clear. If you need something, hey, by the end of today, I need this response. So having really clear timeline of this is what's going on really cuts down on the back and forth and the multiple communications that often are a waste of everyone's time.
Awesome. So let's get a bit practical. There is a place of meetings. There is a place of meetings when managing communication amongst project team members. Specifically, meetings are catered, right? And when things are required external, that's outside project team, emails become a major tool to leverage. Or you set up Microsoft Teams for a group of cross-functional team members. At point, do you step in to say, okay, we need to contain this leveraging meetings and report as specific cadence, or we just leave this to information required when required?
That's a good question. I honestly, I think it depends on the situation. So like in my work right now, we have internal chats, right, that are for a project. And so sometimes there's 20, 25 people on those chats, right? And so sometimes it's way too much information for the bigger group. And so I'll see something go in there and I'll go to the side and talk to someone one-on-one. That's my job as a project manager, is to kind of hear what the issues are and then maybe figure out how to go straight to that person and help, at the end of the day, push the project forward. And sometimes that does mean I ping somebody on the side, say, hey, do you have 5 minutes to chat about X, Y, and Z? Let's figure out what the problem is. So again, it just depends on the situation. But again, my job as the PM is to really be monitoring the bigger picture and knowing which resources to bring in when. I am not the subject matter expert. So there are plenty of times when I won't have the solution, but what I can do is create a meeting and bring all the key players together so they can sit there and do the solutioning. So that's really my job, is to say, okay, I see this issue happening on the tracker or on the chat. Let's go ahead and put a meeting together. So instead of spending another 20, 30 minutes going back and forth or, days sometimes, let's have a meeting. Here's the issue. And then, speaking of clear communication, every single meeting should always have an agenda, a purpose for the meeting. So everyone knows going into the meeting, this is the purpose. This is why you're on this email. This is why you're invited to this meeting. Here's what to expect, so that you can go into the meeting understanding exactly what to do there. And so that's where the emotional intelligence comes in for the PM, is at what point does this need to go to a meeting versus could we just take this to an email versus, whatever form of communication.
Awesome. And I guess probably if you are leveraging a delivery approach, that also helps to contain it, right?
Correct.
For example, if you're going by an agile approach, for example, and that agile methodology has the specific cadence, then you have meetings at cadence. When it's a traditional approach, weekly updates and stuff like that, and weekly meetings at cadence, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, it just depends again on the project and who the executives are and what kind of role they're taking in the project. There are some executives who, let me know once a week, what's going on. Let me know. Again, it depends on the scope of the project and whatever. I have projects where the executive sponsors are weekly getting updates and know exactly what's going on. You might have a KPI meeting every Friday where you talk about all the projects that you're on. So it just depends on the project, but that would be a high level versus a 30-minute meeting. Hey, what's the status of this project? Is it red, yellow, or green? What's going on? Real high level. Here's what we need. And so being able to summarize a big issue into a couple sentences is really important.
Let's get to when things begin. If for any reason things slip or things don't turn out the way they are expected to turn out, what has been your approach in communicating, for example, delays or unexpected issues while maintaining trust in your competence?
Yeah. I think there are a couple things there. Number one, having an issues log, right? And so I have an issues log on my projects where I'm tracking when things, or a raid log where even a risk is coming up. So by the time something becomes an issue, hopefully it's not totally out of the left field. Like sometimes they are, though. There are times when something happens out of the blue that we had no idea. We couldn't see it coming. And so really, again, it's back to what I was saying earlier. Before I'm going to run to the executive sponsor or to the high level people and say, hey, we have a problem. We don't know what to do. Like that's where as a PM, I need to figure out like what's going on? What details do I need to have? What are the key players for this specific issue? And who do I need to bring in, get involved? Is there a root cause analysis I can do first? Whatever information I can gather first, figure out what there is to say and do before I run and wave the red flag that something's on fire. That's generally the best way to go about it.
Awesome. So basically, and you can correct me, basically, over the course of the project, sessions where communications have been ongoing and you've had a raid log from the onset that you have been tracking. Based off of that, there is that transparency. The only time when anything else outside the box comes up, when you do communicate that, integrity will still be maintained. You will still be trusted because it's not like you are not tracking risk all along, right?
As you said, though, there are always things that are expected. Like there could be a power outage, right? And we lose power. And so now we can't run our payroll or whatever the case may be. And so there are always going to be things that you don't foresee. And in those moments, it's really about having a level head, figuring out, okay, what can we do about it? Who do we need to communicate with? Who, again, that stakeholder analysis or stakeholder, who should the most immediate updates and who can help solution this? I mean, again, it's communicating. If it's an emergency situation, that's going to be a chat situation. Well, hey, everyone, this is going on. And if it's something that's not as big, then you can maybe choose email. Like you have to choose that mode of communication based on the type of situation it is, right? And the sense of urgency.
Okay. Awesome. Right. So, let's get to what a one delivered update looks like. Your experience, can you share a time when a poorly delivered update became a real problem and eventually, hopefully, it was resolved and so forth? Or you want to speak to what the anatomy of a poorly delivered update?
So I'll just use an example of, the way I run I have a weekly meeting with a lot of my clients, right? And we go into the meeting, which of course has a clear agenda, has the list of attendees, who's owning which part of it. Always start with, let's review the action items from the week before, make sure, if there were any deadlines, whatever. And so this is all on this agenda. And then walking through the agenda, usually I'll share my screen and be, taking notes so everyone is on the same page, documenting when decisions are made, when there are action items that come up, any issues that come up. And then usually what I do is I like to have a table at the bottom that has new action items that lists the action, the owner, and a due date, and sometimes the status as well. And so what I do at the end of every meeting is I send a recap with all the notes of, what was discussed, all that. And then I always include the action items with a clear due date and ownership. And again, everyone knows to expect that email from me, within a few hours, usually of our call. Here are the action items. Here's who owns what, and making sure that clear information is passed on to everyone. So everyone's on the same page. There's no back and forth about who's owning what or when are you going to get that done, because it's in the email and it's in the update.
Awesome. So you've spoken to what a good update looks like, and a good update being right in the meeting. You are transparently documenting, capturing what the decisions are, and those get sent out after the meeting, so that no one has any concerns or issues. It was just sufficiently discussed, and it will be tracked accordingly. Now, what's the flip side of it? Because the question was, what does it poorly do?
Yeah, thank you for following up on that. Yeah, so part of my first answer is to say that's what a good one looks like. And so the flip side of that really is things like not having owners assigned or not having due dates. Like, hey, can you get that one report to me by next week? I talk a lot about this thing called the bystander effect, and it's used a lot. I actually first learned about it taking a CPR class, and the bystander effect is this idea that people sit around, and it's like that, the idea of the more people that are involved, the more someone assumes someone else is going to take care of it. So if someone is in a car accident and someone needs to call 911, everyone sort of assumes the more people that are there, someone else is taking care of it. So no one calls 911, right? And so I use that in thinking about communication, because what happens, the more people are copied on an email, or the more people are in a chat and someone doesn't specify who they're talking to and they just say, can someone help me with X? Or, hey, who has that report? No one's going to respond. They're all busy, right? You have to be specific. So in emails, so that the answer to the question of the flip side is really general questions, really general statements. Hey, who does what and when? Or like, hey, sometime next week, or yeah, I'll get to that, right? And not having clear expectations. Like I'll be on a meeting where someone says, yeah, I'll send you that report. And I'm like, when will that happen? And it's kind of the joke, right? Oh, Melissa wants a date on that. But like, I have to do that, right? Like if they say, when are you going to get that done? I'm going to ask, okay, what's the urgency of that? Do you need that today? Are we talking a week from now? Right? So getting that clarity is really important. Otherwise, everyone has that bystander effect and everyone stands back and assumes someone else is going to take care of it.
And that easily rolls into the next question, which is, so when asking if I were to ask, what tool would you recommend in making project updates more effective and engaging? It's basically being specific and precise regarding what is being asked, who is being asked that question, what is expected, when is it expected? And that clarity, those things will basically help make that update a lot more effective, correct?
Yeah, and I always say, like, if the notes or the action items were going to be sent to like an executive sponsor who wasn't sitting in that meeting, just anyone, if anyone's going to read through this, could they look at this list and know who's doing what and when, right? And if it's not that clear, then there needs to be a little bit more in there. And so I set up I literally in my agenda have this table set. So when there's a new action item, I go straight down there and I type it in and I add so everyone can see that I'm about to ask for a due date, right? So that's one tool, but I'm also a big fan of AI note takers. I use Fathom in work, or there's different note-taking apps that are actually really crazy smart and give you amazing amount of like key takeaways, or here are the action items. And so I still take all my own notes, but more and more technology is becoming a really fantastic tool. There's a lot of really great tools for recording the call. Then what I can do is go back if I missed something, or sometimes, someone will be talking for a few minutes and they're a subject matter expert about something, and at the end they're like, hey, Melissa, can you make sure you add that to the agenda? And I'm like, add what? I'm not sure I quite know what, right? And so I can go back and watch the video again, or I can go into my notes and make sure that I really understand, or if I missed something or that kind of things. I'm a big fan of those note-taking tools because they really do a good job of summarizing like the key takeaways, the action items, next step, summary of topics. They're pretty scary, but fantastic.
Yep, they are. And that reminds me of that. So, for example, this is on my own end. I was on a project where we had top tier technical folks, and that cross-functional team, had a lot of really, really technical folks. When we started getting all of them to meetings with an agenda at cadence was an issue because they all had their different ways of working and so forth. It did get to a point where someone was sending Python scripts in the body of an email and copied people. And I was like, why? I had to call for it because I was like, I've created this confluence.
Yeah.
You can leverage this tool in help useful to both of you, right?
Yeah.
And you can just I show them how to, when you do the art, the person gets the notification. You want them to see something somewhere, right?
Exactly.
So as opposed to sending mails regarding technical.
Yeah, no, that's true. There's a lot of examples. Another example, I get a lot of, there are some people, we talked before, Justice, about how good communication is a skill, and it is a skill to take a bunch of information and condense it into bullet points. Like that actually takes work. Like as a former language arts teacher, I can tell you that students need to learn how to not just write 10 paragraphs about something that they could say in a lot more clear and concise way, right? And so I think the same practice happens. I have team members who will send me something and they'll send me 2 paragraphs. Nowhere is it clear. Again, what I was saying before is, what is the actual ask? What is the response you're needing? How do you summarize the issue, right? And then if I have to take the 2 or 3 paragraphs, summarize it into 2 or 3 bullet points so I can go to the client and say, hey, here are the issues. And so it is a skill to summarize the issue without needing to give us like 97% of details that maybe aren't relevant. And so learning how to like siphon through the information and pull out the details is important.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that leads me to, so we're almost wrapping up. So in your own experience, what's the most when it comes to communication, and it could be outside communication, right? But what has been a very valuable lesson that you have learned in your journey as a PM that you learned and the audience can benefit?
I'm going to go with something that happened very recently because it's fresh on my mind. And, we're always all learning. Recently I was in a conversation with someone at work and we were messaging back and forth. And somehow through messaging, our messages weren't clicking, right? Like the thing that, people say about like in person versus messaging or words or text messaging is you don't get the body language. You don't get like, I don't know what that percentage is of communication that comes from body language and tone. And when you're in just written form, whether it's email or texting, you can lose so much of the context. And often people assume negatively that has a tone to it. Oh, that they're, that has a negative connotation when honestly, sometimes people are just busy or they're shooting off a quick email or whatever the case may be. And so I think the lesson there is just don't ever assume that the communication is negative. And if you are not sure, ask. In this case, it was a moment where this person and I were kind of going back and forth and we both realized, you know what? Neither of us are communicating what we think we are clearly. Why don't we hop on a call and have a conversation in person? Because the back and forth through the texting just wasn't working for us. We got on a call, had a great conversation, cleared up a lot of things that just weren't happening very well in the text message. And so the lesson there just being like, always evaluate if the mode of communication you're using is working or not. Assume the other people have good intentions. And if it's not working, try a different mode of communication.
Right. You didn't mention this in this example, but I know that emotional intelligence plays a huge part in hearing something and not assuming that, context is what you assume it is, right? You have to give an opportunity for a real context and fuller context. So for example, jumping on a call and on a video call, hopefully, and seeing the person and reading the languages, nuancing can give you a richer perspective, right?
And sometimes it could be the opposite. Sometimes, like I'm a verbal processor. And so for me, sometimes getting in person really helps me to get to the bottom of things. There are people who it helps them to sit down and type out their message so they have time to think about it clearly and all those things. And so sometimes in person isn't the right mode. And it's actually better to send a message where you have time to like think and process your thoughts. And you know what I mean? So it really just depends on the situation. Sometimes like which mode of communication makes the most sense for this situation. And it can be different depending on what's going on. Keep learning. I mean, again, my recent example was from just a couple weeks ago. And, communication is something I feel like I'm very proud of how I do that, but I'm still always learning and thinking through better ways to communicate, better ways to make things more efficient. And so I will say for aspiring project managers, we're already doing so many things. That's the thing that was a real moment for me as a teacher is to realize how much of what a project manager does, like I was doing as a teacher, having that emotional intelligence, being able to context switch, being able to speak the different languages to different people. I spoke to my students differently than I spoke to the administrators, which I spoke differently to the parents, right? And knowing when to use which type of communication and what levels of communication. And so not just teachers. I mean, there are so many people in different careers or different roles that already have project management skills, already have communication skills, and can bring those into project management. So that's the first thing. And then, for people, like I said, that are already project managers, there's always room for improvement. There's always room for, self-evaluation of like, what could I be doing better? Am I listening before I speak? There's this, my husband likes to say, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? And does it need to be said by you? And I feel like that's a really helpful context. Like not always is my voice need to be the one that needs to be heard. Sometimes I can like take a moment and like let other people talk and give their opinions. So
I think when you say things, when you give feedback, I also hear things you're not saying. The last piece regarding what your husband says speaks to self-regulation.
Which is emotional intelligence, right? So exactly. It all ties together. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Right. So we did walk through quite a couple of things from your background to when you began to see that quite the science artists and those two are different. So speaking to managing communication, facilitating effective communication amongst team members, facilitating effective communication with executives, facilitating effective communication across functionally amongst different teams and so forth. Then strategies in communicating, giving updates, especially when unexpected issues arise or delays arise, and you did speak to, you're communicating from the beginning and having a read log and making sure that you're in front of things. To your example regarding the poorly delivered updates, you did start with a well-delivered update right from the meeting, and then you flip it to missing elements of a well-delivered update. So what poorly delivered update will be, not being specific regarding the elements, right? Who's doing what, when, how, that kind of thing, right? So then you did speak to tools that we can leverage to give effective updates and communicate effectively. I also talked about using Confluence and someone throwing Python in the body of my email. Then you did speak to your own lesson regarding getting on the call, communicating with the colleague and having the right context, and you guys not basically meeting at the right spot or understanding, then eventually needing to explore another communication method or tool to have a richer context. Then eventually you spoke to what aspiring and express initiative drivers should consider when communicating going forward. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on so many things to come.
Yes, lots of exciting things coming.
Lots of exciting things coming. Do you have any workshop services coming up shortly that the audience should basically look out for?
Yeah. So, the first thing is I have helped create this program for people pivoting into project management. It's called the Project Manager Accelerator, and I actually just relaunched it this week. And so very excited about it. And so it's a program where people can earn their hours for the PMP, and they get live coaching with me. And so you have to be part of the program, but you get biweekly coaching with me and individual session with me, as well as just the program and learning about project management and job support. So that's something I'm very, very proud of. You can find that through my LinkedIn. I also do some coaching on the side through TopMate, so all of that information is there. I do have a PMP ebook on how to apply for the PMP, and then very exciting thing that's by the time this podcast comes out, it will be out, but actually a pretty big, let's see, how do I say this? A pretty exciting adventure that's coming out for project managers, current project managers, as a way to develop and further their skill set. And my contribution to this project that is very exciting and coming out on this coming Monday is specifically about communication. So actually everything we just talked about is very much in line with this very exciting project that's going to be coming out very shortly. And so I'm very excited to share it with the world. And by the time this podcast comes out, it will be something that project managers, current and aspiring, have access to, and it will be a great tool. So more to come.
Awesome. Looking forward to sharing more of that. Now, also on the screen, your LinkedIn profile will basically be put up so that folks can easily, just in case there's another Melissa Magee.
Yes, and on LinkedIn, I actually just recently changed my name to Magee. So on LinkedIn, most people have known me as Melissa Chapman Magee. So I have both because a lot of people have known me as Melissa Chapman, but I'm Melissa Magee, Chapman in parentheses. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. All right then. Great. We hope for the audience, we hope this has been useful to you. And if you have learned something, please let us engage, like, share, and comment. And when you do so, don't forget to click subscribe and bell notification button if you wish to continue to get quick content connected life and IT project management. Until our next show, remember, every man is the architect of his fortunes. Thank you.